My final guest on the program today is a fantastic, fascinating household name, personal finance expert, Suze Orman. She's a number one, but of course she's number one, New York Times number one best-selling author, was contributing editor to O, the Oprah magazine, for 16 years, hosted the award-winning Suze Orman Show on CNBC for 13 years. Suze, great to see you. Thank you so much for joining us. I have name-dropped you about 6 or 7 times today about, cash, about, looking at the COVID era. I want to thank you because I really enjoyed our pre-call, and I couldn't wait to divulge some of our discussion. But let me ask you, as we think about this question of how do you open the aperture on financial inclusion in this country, what's top on your list? Is Suze there? Okay, are we in touch with Suze? All right. Well, I am going to try to get on with Suze here real quick, and I will tell you, I had an incredible conversation with Suze Orman the other day where we talked a little bit about the COVID era and whether or not there needs to be some pause in the way we grade people. I think that's up for other people to debate, but it's, I think, a legitimate question. We also talked a little bit about the fact that different parts of America have different financial patterns. They operate in different ways. I think that's part of what FICO is getting to. I'm sorry? Okay, good. I hope so. Suze Orman, are you with? Great. Suze, I just said really great things about you a moment ago and introduced you, but I wanted to say I've name dropped you about 7 times during the show today on some of the things that I just couldn't wait for you to get on and raise some of these questions about how do we seriously move towards a more financially inclusive picture. Some of what's been talked about is looking at other data flows that we can look at. What's top on your list?
Well, here's the problem, and in my opinion, everybody, in all the years that I've been doing this, FICO never, in my opinion, has taken into consideration where is the money coming from to pay the bills. And it seems to me that we reward people for getting in debt versus rewarding people for paying in cash. So what do I mean by all that? What struck me during all the years of the Suze Orman Show is that people would have a great FICO score, but as I would be going through their finances, they did not have 1 penny to their name. How were they paying their credit cards? By payday loans, loans from their 401k plans, personal loans from their family, just so they could have a good FICO score. FICO never took that into consideration. Then I came across a whole group of people that paid for everything in cash. The unbanked, the underbanked, all of those people that didn't want to have a credit card, that wanted to pay in cash. And we were penalizing all of them because they did not have a FICO score, and they didn't have a FICO score because they didn't have a credit card. So they paid for their rent in cash. They paid for all their bills in cash, but yet they were penalized for it. So I think the time has come seriously that we redo the entire scoring system, if you ask me. Because just because you're able to pay your bills on time, just because you're able to expand your credit limit and get more of a credit limit, so you're able to decrease your credit to debit limit ratio, which increases your FICO score, all of those things, in my opinion, don't make any sense anymore, especially today.
Well, in a world, I ask you, I want to be careful about how to talk to Tash. I had a, debate today, and I'm sort of happy that, Andrew Jackson's going to be replaced on the $20 bill with Harriet Tubman, but that's a whole nother topic. But you raise these questions about cash versus credit, and I'm just very aware of how digital everything has become. I know the world that you're talking about cash exists, but I also know that the digital world has become bigger, that COVID, for better or for worse, has shoved everyone in to a real digital life. Our fun is digital, our dealing with our family and telling who people we love is digital, our work is digital. And so I'm just wondering, so I'm hearing what you're saying about cash, but the other side of me is saying, we're in a digital world more than we ever were before. So tell me where I'm wrong, as Rachel Maddow would say.
Cash doesn't necessarily have to mean the green stuff. Doesn't have to mean that. It can mean a prepaid card. It can mean a debit card, for instance. There are many people that do have money in banks, but they don't want a credit card. They don't want to get in trouble. They're, afraid of it for whatever reason. So let them pay on their debit cards, on their prepaid debit cards. That should be able to let you be your digital self, let them do things and still be okay.
So that debit card behavior, I mean, this is something I had raised several other times today. I told you I would. But in addition to looking at utility bill payments, rent payments, other dimensions, it does raise this in that debit card behaviors in paying bills is also part of the footprint. So that's something that you would say add to the mix, right?
I would absolutely say add that to the mix. What's so funny is that we just got an example of somebody sending me in this card that they just got with their stimulus, payment on it. And if you look at the back of the card that they got, because they don't really have a bank account, so they were sent this card. The fees on the back of this card from our government is absolutely crazy, by the way. I'm just going to say that. But there are a lot of people, a lot of ways that we can improve the system big time, everybody. There has to be, because I can tell you the way that we're doing it right now is not a good example across the board. There are people that are penalized, that their car insurance premiums are higher because they don't pay, they don't have a credit card and they aren't paying it on time and things like that. Their DirecTV bill is higher. They're even being penalized when they go to get a job because their job says, well, let me check your credit report. You don't have a credit report. So we have to find a different way to report to the credit reports that then tabulate an honest score that really dictates how people are treating their money.
Suze, I don't know if you know John Hope Bryant of Operation Hope. We just had him on earlier, and he's an extraordinary guy, and he's been working with FICO, but he's been looking at this question of not, I'm going to get in trouble here, not philanthropy, not handouts, but how do you get gravity to go the right way by giving people both financial tools, financial getting them to understand the importance of assets and aspiration and unlocking that. And he said something that really struck me. He says, you can map the country in terms of FICO scores. You can go in every community. Guess what? The highest gun violence in the nation are in districts with, a 50 FICO score. The ones that are at 700, they're out shopping, not shooting each other. It's an interesting way. I had never thought of this before. And he says, we need to go into those communities. We need financial literacy. We need new tracks to look at how this and turn it around. And I'm just, it reminded me a little bit of you. Do you think there's an opportunity to go into the places that have not been part of this picture and just make it an obsession of ours to turn that around? I think that's part of the conversation we need to have today.
Listen, financial literacy, no matter where it happens to be, is something that is needed. Now, I find that people are totally financially illiterate in other aspects of their life, no matter what their FICO score happens to be. They don't know, should they have a Roth? Should they not have a Roth? They don't know anything truthfully, the majority of Americans out there. And nobody in the entire United States talks to more people on the personal finance level than I do. But it's not just about financial literacy. It's not just about educating these people that they need this FICO score, they need this, they need that. They know they need it, but we won't give it to them unless they conform to what we want from them. Rather than having them conform to what we want from them, why don't we conform to what they need from us in order to establish themselves in really an economic way that empowers them. They feel, and this is true, that there is a highway into poverty, and there is not even a sidewalk out. Because once you get in there, you now don't have the tools. I mean, really, Steve, look at what's just happened with the pandemic. And I myself called FICO twice and talked to heads of FICO and asked them, can you please freeze the FICO scores from February of last year? If you had a great FICO score before all of this happened, and now you've lost your job, you can't find another job, you're being evicted, all these things are happening to you, which will ruin and has ruined your FICO scores. Even if you are doing everything like you're supposed to do it, And now you have a really low FICO score for no fault of your own. Now you're going to be punished. Your car insurance premiums in many states, they're going to go up. You're not going to be able to probably get hired because once an employer checks your credit report, oh my God, you're in the 500s versus the 760s before. So there's so many new ways that we have to look at things because of the pandemic, because of people being out of job, because of what it's done to their FICO scores. We really have to look at this because we're hurting the majority of the people in the United States that really are on the brink of poverty.
I think just when, I really appreciate your candor, Suze, and it's such an honor to talk to you. My husband's going to be super thrilled that we connected. We'll have to do this again. But I want to, ask one other question. There's someone I know. He was actually a guy who wrote a biography of Walt Disney. He was a screenwriter. He wrote a cover story in the Atlantic magazine. His name is Neil Gabler. And he basically confessed, as my friend Ray Suarez, who used to be on PBS, did recently, that they're one of those people who, if a $400 incident hit them, they're underwater. And we sometimes don't talk about that. Is that even many of those people who seemingly look successful have a financial fragility in their circumstances that are out there. And I guess since you do talk to everyone, do we need to rethink our economic social contract? Do we have to rethink? Because we're talking about those that have not been part of it, but even those that are in it right now I just see more and more stories where that gap between what may be apparent and what may be real for them financially is something we don't often talk about. And I want to talk about it.
Most people out there are financial fakers. The cars they drive are financed or leased to the, companies they financed with. Their homes are financed up to the hilt with some mortgage lender. Their clothes they wear are financed on the credit cards from the department stores and other places like that. What you see is not what's real. There are very few people out there, believe it or not, that what they look like is also what they have. I was with a doctor yesterday, and this doctor has an office with 4 other doctors working for her and all these people. And you would think that she has so much money and everything is going great. And we started to talk like I always do. And I said, so what do you do with your money? And by the time the conversation was over, she started to cry. She's a 58-year-old successful doctor. And she said, Suze, I'm putting my son through medical school. It's $150,000 a year. I promised him I would do that. I've had to take a mortgage out of my home. I don't have any money. I just found out that the money that I was sending to this financial advisor has put me all into insurance products. And now I'm sitting here and I'm telling you, I don't have a retirement account. All I have is debt. And I feel so ashamed and I don't know what to do. You would look at her normally and go, wow, she's really a successful doctor. I bet she's doing great. The more money I have found people make, the more they spend. The bigger house they have, the fancier car they have. They don't think about living below their means, but within their needs. So I'm telling you, we need a total financial revamp on every possible way. We need to open up the discussion of money, which is what I do on my podcast, the Women in Money podcast, and the Men Smart Enough to Listen, official title, by the way. And that's where the truth comes out. We have to stand in our truth, Steve. When we talk money, it's not what you see on CNBC or on Fox Business or on Bloomberg. It's really what's behind the scene when nobody can see what you really have going on, which I do. That's what we need to start looking at.
Well, Suze Orman, thank you so much. Person who talks to more people about their financial situation than anyone. Thank you so much for joining us today. Really appreciate it.
Thanks, Steve. Take care and give your husband a kiss for me.
Okay, great. Well, our goal today was to talk about every dimension of this question. And, when we kind of look at this question of the American dream, how to build it, part of the question is how to get it healthy, how to get new tracks in to do this right, listen to alternative ways to bring people into the financial picture and to give people, a better read. If they're living in a certain way and their bills, whether from rent, from utilities and others, will give you that better picture. That is part of the question and part of the process. But we dealt with an awful lot today, and I want to thank all of our speakers speakers. This brings us to the end of our program. A big thank you to FICO for its support and to all of you attendees for joining us for this discussion. For those of you who have missed any of the conversations, we'll have the video from all of this up on our website shortly. For those of you who can't get enough of our events, come back at 3:30 p.m. today, Eastern. And for Listening to America, we're going to go to every corner of the country that we can and get a fascinating look at what folks around this nation are expecting from the new administration. We'll be speaking with Colorado Governor Jared Polis, the mayors of New Orleans and Espanola, New Mexico, and many more. I'm Steve Clemons. Be well.